Madam Mayor, you are live on YouTube and recorded. You can begin whenever you like.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Welcome to our regular council meeting. Before we begin, just want to remind you that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the Township's YouTube channel, and we may have participants joining us from both the chambers as well, potentially on Zoom. Now we'll just go through and call the roll. We have Deputy Mayor Nelson, Councilor Watt, Councilor Report, Councilor Johnston, and myself, of course, Heather Watson. We have our clerk, Martina J. Hartwig.
Good afternoon.
CAO Atlanta Arthur. So our manager of public works, Jake Goffin, and our planner, Christina Coulter. Welcome. So with quorum in attendance, I will call the meeting to order, beginning with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Michi-Saginaw-Inishimek. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. And if we can just pause, please, for a moment of silence. Okay. So of course, your agenda packages were circulated well in advance of today's meeting. Assuming everybody's had an opportunity to review the agenda, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing nothing, could I please get a motion to adopt the agenda that's before you? Councilor Report, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nelson. All in favor, and that motion carries. Thank you. We have two sets of minutes under item number 6. A resolution just to receive and approve those. Councilor Report, Councilor Watt, all in favor? And that motion carries. Sorry, pause, because it looked like you were going to ask a question.
I got some business surprising from them.
Okay.
If I might.
Yes, you most certainly can.
Yes, we.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. We got a letter here. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention. And Jake is in the house tonight. And I'll just read it out briefly. I think that might be the best. Dear Atlanta Arthur's Chief Administrator Officer, please be advised that Jason Con was awarded the Certified Road Supervisor Intermediate CRS 1 designation, under the Certified Road Supervisors Program at the recent review meeting of the Certification Board. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact our office to discuss. Enclosed are the notification letters being sent to the applicant and council. Thank you for supporting your employees' professional development. Anyways, it's an achievement that I went through, and I know the hard work that goes into that. Anyways, thanks for the dedication, Jim. Thank you.
And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing that forward. I appreciate that. So we did do the motion on the minutes. So on to our consent agenda. There appears to be 7 items here listed. Is there anything that council would like to hold for discussion that's on consent? Seeing nothing, Councilor Report.
Let's make a motion to proceed.
Okay. And the seconder, please. Councilor Johnston. All in favor? And that motion carries. On to delegations. We do have a couple of public meetings today under the Zoning Act. So we will start with item 8.1 for zoning bylaw amendment file R01-24. Just a motion to open the public meeting. Councilor Watt, seconded by Councilor Johnston. All in favor? That motion carries, and over to you, Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor Watson, members of council, staff, and the public. This is the public meeting, okay?
It's okay, no, it's my hearing aids.
This is the public meeting for proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file number R-01-24.
Council has before them report planning 2024-05 with the recommendation that report planning 2024-05 dated February 20th, 2024 regarding zoning bylaw amendment file R-01-24 be received, and that council receive all comments related to the zoning bylaw amendment file R-01-24, and that the bylaw to enact the amendment be passed at the appropriate time in meeting. So on behalf of the owner, Patricia Leahy, Ryan O'Neill from Ward Lawyers Professional Corp has applied to amend the existing zoning on a portion of the subject property located in Part Lot 8, Concession 5 of the Douro Ward. Patricia and her son Derek are in attendance tonight. Notice of the public meeting and complete application was given on January 22nd by ordinary mail and email as prescribed under the regulations of the Ontario Planning Act. Notices were also posted on the subject property and on the township website. This rezoning is required as a condition of consent application file B-79-22 that was conditionally approved by Peterborough County on February 27th, 2023. The subject property is currently zoned rural and development D2. The zoning bylaw proposes to rezone the severed parcel from the development D2 zone to the special district 54 zone to permit the land to be used for a single detached dwelling and to recognize the deficient lot frontage of 39 meters. Council has a copy of the draft bylaw attached to the report. As of the writing of this report, there have been no comments received from members of the public. The following comments have been received from the agencies. Enbridge Gas had no objections to the application. Hiawatha First Nation had no concerns or questions. The County of Peterborough Public Works Department had no objections, comments, or concerns. Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board had no concerns or issues. Autonomy Region Conservation Authority. The proposed development is not located within a known hazard. Therefore, the application remains consistent with section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement. The lands are partially subject to Ontario Regulation 167/06, which is their development interference with wetlands and alterations to shorelines and water courses regulation. So permits from their agency will be required prior to any site alteration or construction in those areas that are regulated by ORCA. The subject property is not located within a designated vulnerable area where significant threats can occur, so Trent Source Protection Plan policies do not apply, and a restricted land use notice was not required. The application was circulated to senior staff on January 22nd, and there were no concerns identified by senior staff. So as proposed, the draft bylaw is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the growth plan and the official plan. With that, I will turn it back to you, Mayor Watson, for any questions from the public or council.
Great, thank you very much. Is there anyone present in the gallery or on Zoom who would like to comment on the application? No, is there anybody in Zoom? No, there's not. Thank you. Nothing from the gallery. So over to council. Any questions from council? Nothing at all. So with that, then.
I'll close the public meeting.
Thank you. Second by Councilor Vermont. In favor? That motion carries. So we could move forward with some support from council on this to move item 13.1 up on the agenda from which is the bylaw that these folks are waiting for. Councilor Vermont?
Yes.
So you want to move it ahead, and is that a motion on the bylaw?
Motion to accept it, yes.
Second by Councilor Johnson. Any discussion for motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. You're off to the races, folks. And can we do a motion to receive the documents? A motion to receive the documents in the report. Sorry, I missed that one too.
I'll make a motion
Councilor.
to receive the documents from the public.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Nelson, your hand was up. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Awesome.
Probably to answer this question through you, because, so is this one of the situations as the 20-day appeal period?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yeah,
Yeah.
zoning bylaw amendments do have a 20-day appeal period.
Okay,
If they're not appealed, they do take effect the day they were passed.
gotcha. Okay.
And I know
Just so that the
Christina
clients
will
know that there is an appeal period in there that goes with this. Perfect, thank you.
And Christina will be sending out notice to the applicant and other agencies as per the planning act.
That's fine. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, great. That one was easy. Let's move on to item 8.2. You guys are welcome to stay, but we would be offended if you decided to.
Thank you very much for all of your work on this.
Thank you,
Thank you. Thank you.
We already did.
Thanks.
So we now have item 8.2 for another zoning bylaw amendment, file R02-24. Councilor report.
I'll make a motion to open the public meeting.
Thank you, seconded by Councilor Johnston. All in favor? And that motion carries, and over to you, Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Mayor Watson, members of council, staff, and the public. So this is the public meeting for our proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file R-02-24. Council has before them report planning 2024-06 with the recommendation that report planning 2024-06 dated February 20th, 2024 regarding zoning bylaw amendment file R-02-24 be received, and that council will receive all comments related to zoning bylaw amendment file R-02-24, and that the bylaw to enact the amendment be passed at the appropriate time in the meeting. Owners Stephen and Donna Kelly have applied to amend the existing zoning on portions of their property known municipally as 2086 McCracken's Landing Road. I don't believe Stephen and Donna are in attendance tonight. Notice of the public meeting and complete application was given on January 25th by ordinary mail and email as prescribed under the regulations of the Ontario Planning Act. Notices were also posted on the subject property and on the township website. This rezoning is required as a condition of consent application files B-61-21 and B-62-21 that were conditionally approved by Peterborough County on April 20th, 2023. The subject property is currently zoned rural and development D2. This zoning bylaw proposes to rezone the severed parcels from the development D2 zone. This one's complicated. So to the residential zone and to the environmental conservation zone to permit the parcels to be used for a single detached dwelling and to confine development to the cultural meadow on the property. The retained lands are also proposed to be rezoned from the rural and the development D2 zone to the environmental conservation zone and the rural zone to recognize the wetlands and their associated 30-meter vegetation protection zone and to permit all the uses within the rural zone, including a single detached dwelling. A copy of the bylaw is attached to the report. As of the writing of this report, there have been no comments received from members of the public. Comments were received from the following agencies, and Bridge Gas had no objections to the application. Autonomy Region Conservation Authority noted that their mapping indicates that the application as proposed is recognizing the on-site known hazards and zoning them appropriately. Therefore, it is the opinion of Autonomy Conservation staff that the application remains consistent with section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement. Retained lands are partially subject to Ontario Regulation 167/06, which is their development interference with wetlands and alteration to shorelines and watercourses regulation. So permits from their agency will be required prior to any site alteration or construction in the regulated area. The subject property is partially located within the intake protection zone number 3 for the Lakefield Municipal Surface Water System. They did note that intake protection zones relate to municipal surface water intakes, and in brackets, they indicated a lake or river for residential drinking water. And they're categorized as either 1, 2, or 3 based on setbacks. The time required to respond to a spill and the time for surface water flows to reach the municipal intake. Low and or moderate threats are possible, however, significant threats are not. So therefore, they concluded that the Trent Source Protection Plan policies do not apply and a restricted land use notice is not required. The application was circulated to senior staff on January 25th, and there were no concerns identified. So as proposed, the draft bylaw is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the growth plan and the official plan. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Mayor Watson, for questions from the public and council.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone present who would like to comment on this application? In the gallery or on Zoom? Still not on Zoom? Then with that, I will hand it over to council. Any questions of staff or regarding the application? Councilor Moore,
I'll make a motion to close the public meeting.
seconded by Councilor Johnston. All in favor? That motion carries. So we'll do this the proper order this time. We'll work on a motion to receive the report. Councilor Watt, Deputy Mayor Nelson, any discussion of the motion? All in favor? And that carries. So then we'll be looking, if possible, to move up item 13.2 to pass the bylaw. We may as well, we're moving that way. So Councilor Watt and Councilor Johnson seconds, all in favor, and that carries. We're good to go. Great, thank you. As of the cutoff time today, we had nobody registered to speak for the public comment period, so we can move on then to staff reports. Then we have item 10.1, the report and capital project status. Any questions from council staff on that, Councilor Watt?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Parks Recreation has taken over the lime kiln restoration, and that was in the 2022 budget, and then it's moved to the 2023. Can you just give a little update where we are on that one, or is it on hold because of, I'm just curious where it's at.
Through Mayor Watson to Councilor Watt. We have taken a look at the work that's required there was some discussion about what was necessary from a safety perspective as well as a restoration perspective. Some discussions with our manager of recreation facilities as well as our CBO, again, for the safety aspect. We did have one quote provided and we are seeking an additional quote just to get an idea of what the cost is and ensuring that if the restoration moves forward, that we're doing it in line with the original structure. Right. So we've just followed up on that second quote, so we will have something coming back to council.
And would this be our final stage? Like once this is done, this is it. It'll be open to the public then. Through
Mayor Watson, Councilor Watt, yes, that would be the final stage. I think it's going to be the cost implication that we're looking at. Because there was some discussion about what needed to be done and potentially what the cost might be to bring it up to a standard that we want to see. So we're just waiting on that secondary quote so that we can bring something back to the
Thank you.
Councilor Johnson.
Through the chair, did we not put that off this year? I thought we didn't set any money aside for that.
Through Mayor Watson to Councilor Johnson, we didn't allocate any additional money, although I believe there is still some money that's been carried over the last couple of years. Whether it is enough remains to be seen. So we will report back.
Any other questions from council staff on the report?
Just one more thing. Is it then going to be open that the people can walk around and look at it? And it's kind of fenced off now, but the people will be actually be able to walk in around.
To Councilor Johnson, that's the intent, yes, so that it's a safe structure that people can go in and actually look down, that it's put together to a point that it is somewhere that people can go and enjoy it.
Any further questions on the report? Is there the motion to receive, Councilor report?
Motion to receive.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries, thank you. On to item 10.2, we have a request for funding, and that's over to you, Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mayor Watson. The recommendation before you is that the Public Works 2024-04 report dated February 20th, 24 regarding the AOR's request for provincial funding for a municipal operators course to be received, and that council send AOR's a letter of support with a copy forwarded to MPP Dave Smith and Minister of Labor, Training, Immigration and Skilled Trades. Just to give you a bit of background or overview of this, the Association of Road Supervisors is a provincial association of public works professionals. The association offers a broad range of training and professional development programs for the public works sector. As we've just heard earlier, the CRS program is widely recognized throughout the municipality sector, public works sector, across the province. Over the last year, AORs has been dedicating much of their advocacy to encouraging the youth to consider careers in the public works department in the municipal world. AORs has applied for skills development funds through the province's Ministry of Labor, Training, Immigration and Skilled Trades to develop this operator course. There's no financial impact at this time. The ask is that AORs have applied for this funding, and they're asking, reaching into councils for support in their application as specified in the letter that I had attached. So if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I feel this is a great thing for council to support for the youth to gain some training and information regarding the public works sector, as lately we have struggled to gain qualified employees when we're looking, so it is becoming a factor, and yeah, I think it's a good cause. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council. Anyone else?
Through the chair. Jake, this is something that probably they'd be looking at going to different community colleges and probably running a program or even in-house with AORs, or is that kind of the feel you're getting, or outside sources would be providing training, like say Sir Sanford or something like that?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Watson. My understanding is they are working with community colleges to implement this at the college level.
Any other questions? Councillor
No,
Johnson?
no question through the chair. I'm just gonna make a motion passing the following motion that we have in front of us.
So a motion to
Support.
approve the recommendation? Councillor Verboort?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion to the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. On to the next item, update to township records retention bylaw, and that's
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the report that's before you is regarding the township's retention bylaw. The recommendation is that the report be received, that the draft records retention bylaw be approved at the appropriate time during the council meeting. So the township has always had a records retention bylaw in place. The last significant update to modernize it was in 2012, where we brought in the Township system, which is the Ontario Municipal Records Management System. So that system's been in place, but we haven't done a full-scale review of our bylaw since 2012. So we thought it was in due course to do that after 12 years. So that's what's before you today. We have added a few different categories into the bylaw that aren't part of the Township system to make it easier for our staff to use. We've also extended some of the retention schedules for some of the documents to make them come in line with operational needs, but we have not reduced any of the schedules or changed any of the categories outside of Township. So if there's questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I did include the exact details in my report about those new categories that will be created.
Great, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Questions?
I want to make a comment that is quite a report for loud reading. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Councillor
That's
Wyatt.
good.
No, I was just gonna say, that's a lot of work put into that, and I appreciate it. That's 10, 12 years, depending, it's a long time. So I would like to make a motion, we approve the recommendation, but thanks.
Okay, before I take that motion, I just have a question on the report. Did I catch wind that Tom Rams is maybe something that's on its way out as a system for document management down the road, or?
Through my memory, not that I know of, I think the paper components of Commerce are on their way out, as is paper for most organizations. But they do have a full, the system can be transferred into a digital platform, which is why I wanted to update the bylaw now before we move to more digital records retention. So that I have a system in place that's been approved by council to categorize all of our records as they get scanned and placed into our future digital system. I have to do an RFP on that, so I can't provide you too much more details. But we need kind of this structure in place before we can move to that next step of modernization.
Okay, again.
Just through you, Mayor Watson, further to that, the Township system is more of a classification system as opposed to the document management system. So although it sets out the retention schedules, it really is just an opportunity to classify where everything goes. Because most of us look at it and we don't know where to save it. So this just provides staff with some structure. More than likely, we're going to contact the department for that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Watt, were you going to make that motion?
I did, yes.
And second by Deputy Mayor Nelson. That's to receive and approve the recommendation.
Recommendation with thanks.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? And then that motion carries. On to where are we here? Oh, off-road vehicles, and that's over to our CEO.
Thank you, Mayor Watson. The recommendation is that CEO-2024-04, report dated February 20th, 2024, regarding the off-road vehicle municipal bylaw be received and that council approve the bylaw at the appropriate time of the meeting. This report just outlines the conversations that went back and forth, the ultimate resolutions of council, and consolidated the two previous bylaws. Really the only change in that was just aside from the roads that were identified and the county roads, obviously with the county bylaw, but it was just to bring in the set lines. So the previous one had indicated that it would go through Provincial Offences Act, which ultimately just means you're going to court right away. This, if we have set fines, we would be able to establish fines in a ticketing process. So the bylaw just consolidates that, but really no changes to anything other than what council had.
Questions, comments, Councilor Ward?
Through Mayor Watson, so just to be clear, then this is essentially just consolidating all of the discussions on bylaws and whatnot from prior discussions and putting it all in one place in bylaw format. And with that, then I would like to receive this and approve the bylaw.
Okay. Anyone to second that? Councilor Johnston? Any discussions on the motion? All in favor? And that motion carries. On to short-term rental update and options. Also back over to you, Ms. Erfers.
Thank you. I will begin with the recommendation on this one as well. Since I bring it up here. So the recommendation is that CAO 2024-02 report dated February 20th, 2024 regarding an update to short-term rentals and options for regulating such in the Township of Douro-Dummer be received, and that council directs staff to continue to move forward with option number 1 in 2024 while working through the requirements of a licensing program should it be required in 2025 or subsequent years. There's a lot of information in this report, and I felt like I could have kept writing because there are so many angles and so many caveats that come with it. So as I started to go through and looked at our various options and tried to look at what other municipalities were doing and trying to mirror ones that are similar to ours, I initially thought I'm just going to bring all the information to council and let council have a discussion. When we look at a licensing option, in my view right now, I think it's a very costly venture, and I think there are a lot of moving parts. I think you have both the provincial and the federal government. We have issues with the zoning bylaws and other case law that is out there that has not come to a conclusion. And I feel like it's premature to look at that. So I really tried to focus, not to mention the cost that comes along with a licensing program. So I chose to focus more on option 1 and what we could do right now. We have adopted the new bylaws. Again, we will look at those set fines, something that we haven't had previously to be able to enforce those. Given that these two bylaws, we likely will have to look at that AMP program because it will assist us in collecting. So we'll have more effect than I think previously or otherwise would have. In addition, I think the good neighbor approach is great. Trent Lakes has done a great job on that communication, and we did start with some of that some time ago, and I think we can enhance that. We can, provide that on our social media platforms and really try to push that to let people know if your renters are not behaving. We do have this licensing program that we're prepared to move forward with. We can continue to look at what's happening in the environment and sort of bring that together as a document. So if we do need to go back to it, it will be ready to go, and council could make a decision to move forward. And in the meantime, just look at what happens over the course of the next year with short-term rentals, the amount of complaints that we receive. Is it dying down now that COVID has come to an end and people are able to travel? Will the communication, the fact that we have these additional bylaws and the enforcement opportunities bring some of these complaints to rest? And hope that we can deal with the problem like that. And if it continues or escalates, certainly we would have that licensing program to fall back on. I also struggled a little bit with the numbers in our municipalities. So we had 3 alternate reports over the last 3 years, two from a firm called Hamari, which has become Avenue, and Granicus. And every one of them offered a different number. And I appreciate when I went through the information that they gave us on how they track these short-term rentals, they do some pretty deep dives, and some things I might find questionable. But I can understand, even saying that some renters will pull their listings down during the day because they know that's where municipalities are going in, and they'll only put them out evenings and weekends. And so you never really get a good sense of how many there are. I think if you go through, which I don't expect that everybody has in detail, but the Avenue proposal indicates, I think, 130 listings. It's not 130 unique properties. So we're looking at, like I said, somewhere under 100, and these municipalities that are looking at these licensing programs like Trent Lakes, there are over 400 short-term rentals. So I feel like our problem or challenge is smaller in comparison. Out of those, how many are really challenges and really are disturbing neighbors? And hopeful that these bylaws and the good neighbor approach and potentially looking at our zoning bylaw and how we might want to regulate them will solve our problem. Alternatively, potentially some other level of government is going to provide some assistance to that approach.
Okay, questions, Councilor Burford.
Mayor Watson, to Atlanta, thank you very much. This is incredibly comprehensive and a lot of good reading. So thank you. As you say, there's so many moving parts in here. I'm optimistic that another level of government will provide some direction or some case law in the next year. And in all reality, the cottage season is coming up quite soon. So proceeding with some type of licensing program in 2024 would be practically impossible. So I think your solution here of ensuring enforcement of existing bylaws for 2024, and continuing to move forward with looking at licensing in 2025 seems like a pretty reasonable approach, especially if we can communicate those bylaws with people who are running the short-term rental properties. One of my broader concerns with short-term rentals, aside from neighbor complaints, which I can definitely empathize with, is the roles of residential properties and taxed as such. And we have other businesses that operate like a camp or a bed and breakfast, which are taxed differently. So it disadvantages formalized businesses as opposed to someone who just owns a piece of residential property that they operate as a hotel. One of my larger concerns with it, but thank you very much for the work that's put into this and the 2 options here.
Thank you for your question, Councilor Burford. Could you repeat that? Councilor Johnston?
Again, through the mayor. Number one, I appreciate the report. And for us to jump on right now, with the numbers we have and the cost it would take, I can understand that what we're doing is the right thing at this moment. I do think that it is very, very important, like I said before, is to notify the list that we do have, the 60 or 70 of the ones that we have on there, a quick email or something to say that this is what we're doing in the future, and that we're gonna be policing them. So you police your own people, because if it comes back to bite you, they will be coming down with a license that you'll have to pay. So I think it's very important to educate those people, you know, to give them a heads up that we are being, watching them. And I guess my only question then, right now for policing it, is one of two things, the police is one. And then through the week, when we have our building department, whoever, are they gonna see some issues, like they'll respond to some of the issues?
Through you, Mayor Watson, they have the ability to, so I do speak to that in the report, that we
Yeah.
may come back to council, depending on what we're seeing as far as complaints and the time of day. We may have to come back and outsource, I would say outsource some bylaw enforcement as opposed to looking at putting any, you know, I did talk about potentially a contract position, bringing it in-house as an individual, but I think there's some companies out there we can outsource it to. Although the hourly cost seems a little bit more extreme, I think it would be limited to how much we would require them. Trent Lakes has had some good experience with that company, so I think we can look at some of those and contract that if we feel we need it, if we're getting a number of complaints after hours. But we'll come back to council and let you know if that's the case and what we think we need to provide. If we get the complaints and the OPP are not able to respond, we certainly can follow up when we're back in the office. It just wouldn't be that immediate response. So if we find that that's a necessity, then we'll come back and seek some support to get some external help.
Well, thank you, because we know that bulk of the time it's gonna be on the weekend, that the issues are gonna come up. And I think as long as the people that are renting these places understand that they're gonna be watched, and if the neighbors phone, then we'll, you know, then they can attack, simple as that.
Anything else from council on this? Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Yeah, thanks for your work on this. It's from being on the committee, and I know that this is going to be a very costly endeavor to license, because I believe a lot of them will just go underground, and I know they will. They'll just pull their listings off, and in a lot of cases they'll carry on like they used to underground, and you won't even know about where they are, who's licensing or anything else. I really do feel that is how people will actually run themselves. And anyways, I do know the federal government is talking about they're wanting to come out and license, or they put that out there now, if they're still in power, that they are planning on doing it right across the country for short-term rentals. So there's a lot to be to develop as far as I'm concerned, yeah. So anyways, but thanks for your work, and I do appreciate the recommendation that we go along with enforcing the bylaws, and hopefully people can be good neighbors and promote that. So thanks. My comments.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nelson. Councilor Wong.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Lana. It is a very comprehensive and very well put together. It's the crystal ball would be a great thing at this particular time, but it's one of those things that, yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. I do like option number one, and the only couple of things that I would like to see. So let's say I'm renting Harold's property and I'm causing a problem, and I either get a visit from the bylaw enforcement or I get a visit from the OPP. They're gonna address me with it like that, but I wanna make sure that the owner also knows that I had a visit, that you know, I caused a problem and the visit was there. So we need that, and probably it is in our works until I get, but I wanna make sure that it is, so the owner knows, because that could be, hey, you know, they're causing problems, especially if there's a couple times, I'm not renting with them next year because they're causing me big problems. So I'd like to see that in there. And then the other thing that I brought up before, and I don't even know how to get around it, is the clarification as to where short-term rental is, because again, Harold's cottage, he rents it to his daughter for 2 weeks in summertime, you know, to help offset the taxes, stuff like that. To me, that's a family thing. It's not a short-term rental. It is in the way it's spoken, but it's not the same as someone buying a property or you know, and renting it out the whole summer, maybe in the winter for snowmobile and stuff like that. It's two different things, but where do you draw the line? It's going to be a slippery slope on that one with, you know, who comes up with the where they draw the line, and I wouldn't want to be in that position, because I really don't know where you draw the line on that one. But that's just a couple comments, but thank you very much for putting this together, and option one, I would say would be an excellent start right now for us.
Through you, Mayor Watson, to Councillor Watt, I've had some discussion about just that, because every municipality is struggling with that. You know, the renters or the owners that only rent a couple of times a year. And unfortunately, nobody has been able to find a balance. And if we say, if you rent less than 30 days in a year, then we're not going to require a license. Guarantee you, everybody who's renting 60 days in a year is telling us they're renting 30. So it becomes just an additional enforcement and additional policing on the side of the township, which, you know, can create some challenges for us. So I don't have the answer to that, and I don't think any of the municipalities have. I think everybody has gone to, if you rent it, you rent it. You're a short-term rental. It doesn't matter how many times a year or how many days or who you're renting it to. Just because of that. And again, when I look at our municipality and how many we actually have and how many are causing issues, because I think there's lots probably that just do that really aren't creating any issues for us.
And do you have that in place that I get hit up by the police, you don't put the noise or the bylaw or but the owners also gets notified? I'm not saying they get the same fine, but they're notified that this did happen on their property?
Through you, Mayor Watson and Councillor Watt, we do not, but I think previously we had talked about having an inspection fee, which we don't have implemented in this, but I think notification is important. So we will make a note for sure that the owners get a notification should their renters, should somebody call and complain about their renters. Probably have to be careful about any enforcement that we reveal. I think that's probably confidential information, but we can definitely let them know if there was a complaint.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilor Report, I saw your hand up before. I'm just going to do a quick follow-up question of our CAO on notification. I believe Councilor Johnson had touched on earlier notifying the property owners who were aware of that we're going to be potentially going down this path. Do we have a mechanism in place where we can do that beyond social media media releases or our local media partners, or can we send a letter? Like, how does that operationally look?
Through Mayor Watson, we don't have a list. I could certainly reach out to the companies that do the scraping and ask them. They didn't provide us with the costing just to identify. They're all bundled with a number of other services, so I could ask them just for our cost to identify. Certainly, there are some that we are already aware of. We could do our own check online to determine. We're fairly small. You know, a lot of the staff have a pretty good idea where places are, and we could do some of our own due diligence in that sense. And then obviously, once we're in a situation for receiving complaints, we definitely can send something out at that time. Hopefully our social media platforms and, you know, just the information will get out there that people are aware. But I think for now, it would probably be prudent for us to try to develop a list on our own internally. We may not capture everybody, but as opposed to asking one of the companies to scrape it for us and, you know, again, not knowing whether or not we're getting the most up-to-date information, and we'll address the ones that we know of and send letters out. I think the word will get out there.
Thank you. Councilor Report.
Super Watson. So based on the discussion here, it sounds like when we're talking about short-term rentals, it feels like we're kind of on the same page when we talk about scraping websites to get locations. We're not talking short-term rentals in terms of me renting a cottage to a coworker. We'll consider these short-term rentals as being a commercial business that's renting a cottage that's where the posting is publicly available information. Because if you're on Airbnb or rural, your listing is publicly available, and it feels like those are the people, and those are the property owners that we'll be communicating with here.
Through Mayor Watson, Councilor Report. I think if we have a list, we're going to send it out. You know, it's not a confrontational letter. It's more just an information piece to indicate this is where we are. We have these new bylaws that have been adopted. Please advise your renters. Here's your good neighbor approach renters news, whatever we want to call it. You know, leave space so that they can let them know this is garbage day. This is how you handle your recycling. This is your address. Should you have to call 911, you know, dogs are expected to be, or animals are expected to be contained. All of those, you know, make sure your fire's out, you know, make sure you call for your burn permit. Here's your burn permit number. All of those things that just to make it easy for the property owner to hand that over to the renter and put, you know, the onus on them to make sure that the information is there. So I think anybody that we know of will share the information regardless. And, you know, whether it's just a small renting 2 times a year, 2 weeks out of the year versus the bigger, I'm cautious about saying commercial because there's no definition for it. So I know there's lots of argument on both sides, but we don't have a specific definition that's commercial use. So I think we would send it out to everybody we were aware of.
Follow-up, Councillor Before?
I would actually like to make a motion, if that's appropriate. I would like to receive the report and direct staff to continue moving forward with option number 1 and continue exploring options for 2025. With the kind of adjustment in here as well to provide the communication piece with property owners and to investigate communications with property owners if there's a noise complaint or any other type of bylaw infringement.
Okay, we have a motion made. Anyone wish to second that?
So
Councillor Johnson.
And I do stress, like Adam said, that we notify the people like you're doing. And so we want that in there to know that that's going to happen.
Any discussion to the motion? So before we call the vote, I will add my 2 cents on this one. I think this is a good start. I know we've had a lot of time and staff resources and people from the community in terms of engagement with the committee and otherwise who have been following this matter, not just in Douro-Dummer Township, but beyond. And I appreciate the work of staff as well as the feedback that we've received from people. At the onset, I'll be the first to admit, I was a proponent towards licensing. I'm not necessarily convinced after seeing the report and the numbers that is the path forward. The costs versus the size of the problem may not necessarily be in alignment. However, I think option 1 is a good toe in the water start to that, so we can get a better understanding of what the complaints are. We can monitor that and understand the volume to look towards, potentially licensing or zoning in the future if the need arises, while still monitoring what's going on, as Deputy Mayor Nelson said, with respect to any upper level legislation that might be coming forward. So I don't think that this is a perfect solution. I don't think we ever thought we'd come up with a perfect solution. It's too complex and too fluid at this point in time. But I think that the strong message to operators of problem short-term rental facilities is get your operations in line, because we have the vehicle, the facility to enforce and can still potentially turn it into a licensing option or zoning. And it sounds like council is still interested in hearing what those options could look like in the future if it still is problematic. So I do support the motion that's on the floor, and I think thank you, Alana, and to staff for your work in pulling the information. It's been a long go, and I'm optimistic that the summer will be a little bit more manageable. So with that said, we've got a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are now on to committee minutes and other reports. We've got a couple of sets of minutes in front of us, including the library board minutes and committee of adjustment minutes, where we're just looking for a motion to receive. Councillor Watt?
Yes, 10-1, 10-2, and 10-3.
I think 10-3 needs it's separate. The first 2 would just be to receive, and 10-3 would be received and approved.
Adjustment ones are, okay, the first 2.
The first 2 on you, and Councillor Johnson, you're seconding that? Any discussion on that? All in favor? That carries. And then we're on to committee of the whole minutes. Deputy Nelson, to receive and approve.
Yep.
Councillor Report, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion carries. And then lastly, under this section, I think you're saying 10, I'm showing 11. I think I've got some misnumbering, yeah. So I've got 11-4, but it's 10-4. Deputy Mayor Nelson, we have a discussion regarding setback for septic systems. What was your answer?
That's Madam Mayor, that's a 10-4.
That's a 10-4.
Sorry. I didn't use that. Anyways, yes, through you, Madam Mayor, this issue has come up, actually, it's been brought to my attention, several times. And a lot of it is dealing with, people that are actually putting in septic systems, our customers and actually, a couple of other, residents that we're not happy about it, more or less on Birch Tree Road. And what has changed or what has happened, ever since the township or we have taken over, septic inspections, the setback has moved from 3 meters to all sides of the septic system to 15 meters setback for frontage off of municipal road. So we do not even line up with all the rest of the county, and the reason being is through our zoning bylaw. After talking with Christina and with Don, they classify a septic system as a structure through the zoning bylaw, and that is what brings us into 15 meters setback. So I have a very big issue with that. We're not being equal in our setbacks with other standards throughout the county, which is 3 meters. And when Peterborough Health Unit used to look after it, that's what it was 3 meters setback. And it's also been brought to my attention that a concern was, okay, well, say the township needs a widening or that on a road. Well, any new development that we do, we mostly take a 10-foot strip. So that would be then 3 meters back from that 10-foot strip on any severances. So I can't see where we need to ask for any more than what that is. And I take my own place, for example, I would not even be able to replace my septic bed in front of my house because of that setback. So it's been very, very, I guess, frustrating for people putting in these septic systems that have to abide by a 15-meter setback. So I believe that we need to change the zoning bylaw to reflect this, that it should be back to 3 meter setback, the same as it always has been, and not 15 meters. And I believe that we need to ask staff, go back to staff and get them to look at this and come back with their recommendations to council on this. And there might be some stuff I haven't thought about, but I'm certainly open to their recommendations on this. And I think we need to open it up and change the zoning bylaw. So that's my comments on that 10-4.
Okay, 10-4, over that. So it sounds like there's a motion in there to ask staff
Yes.
to come back with a report. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I'd like to make that motion that staff will come back, would look into that and come back to council with a recommendation on that. So that's my motion. Yeah.
Is someone wanting to second that? Councillor Johnston? Discussion of the motion, Councillor Watt.
Yes, if I may, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So a septic system is classed as a structure, correct? In our present, is that zoning or is it zoning? Okay, so are we kind of in the same thing as, you know, when we did here not long ago with tennis courts? It's not a structure, it's part of your house, yes, it's part of your whatever thing, but I don't see something like it as a structure. To me, that's not the definition of structure, so maybe that's something we have to look into too, and I don't know how we do an amendment on that, but I guess the same way that we did do the tennis court, yeah, council is all in favor, And that could be part of the report too, I'm sure it will be, but I would like to see that taken out and then that's maybe, you know, and then the 3 meters setback. But I think the 15 has to do with being a structure, if I'm not mistaken, so.
I think Ms. Arthur has some knowledge to share.
Through Mayor Watson to Councillor Watt. I did have a conversation briefly with Mr. Holman this afternoon, just to make sure that I could answer some basic questions. I won't try to elaborate, and I will allow him to bring back the report. But yes, it is classified as a structure. Other agencies classify it as a structure, some, but not all. So this is where the discrepancy is. Currently, Peterborough Public Health manages septics for other municipalities, and they don't classify it as a structure. That's all being transferred to the lower tiers. So we may see other municipalities that move to the definition being a structure like MTO, like some of those other provincial agencies that currently classify it as a structure. So it is why our zoning bylaw is set up the way it is, because it's classified as a structure. I think that definitely has to be determined. Is it a structure, is it not, and how we want to move forward with that, and then addressing the setbacks accordingly. Don's quite prepared to come back. They do have a meeting with the other CBOs in the county. So he said, I will have this discussion too, just to see where other municipalities fall. We certainly don't want to be the outlier with, you know, a difference between 3 and 15 meters. So he will have that meeting prior to coming back with a report, and he's prepared to bring something back to council with a recommendation.
Excellent, thank you.
If I can just clarify that when we're talking about them being classified as a structure, that's exclusively in the zoning bylaw, not in the Ontario Building Code? That's correct. Okay, thank you. Any other, we have a motion on the floor. Did we get that seconded? I'm sorry. Yes, Councilor Johnston. Any other questions or comments to the motion? All in favor then? And that motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so we've got a few items that are correspondence. 10-4, incidentally, didn't hear over and out. Motion carried. Correspondence action items, we've got a letter here from the town of Newmarket. Excuse me, regarding notice policy and procedure bylaw update. I feel like we already saw a similar letter come to council on this.
Through Madam Mayor, there was a letter from another community just regarding notice policy. This one speaks to procedural bylaw as well, so slightly different. So we just thought we'd bring that back towards the council's attention.
Understood, thanks for that clarification. Council, what would you like to do with that? Councilor Report.
Make a motion to receive.
So this is, thank you, sorry, just to clarify, so this is around, fewer print publications available for notice to be given and looking for change in the policy for notice from the ministry so that we can also give more notice digitally.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right, okay. Sorry, motion to receive?
So, sorry, can I get more clarification on? Sorry, I just don't quite understand.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, so as everyone kind of knows, Post Media and some other media companies that run local newspapers have folded a lot of local newspapers. There's actually an act called the Legislation Act in the province of Ontario, and it speaks to using local newspapers as a means for notice, as the primary means for notice for municipalities. Because many communities no longer have a newspaper of record, they're not able to comply with that piece of legislation. And so there's this move by communities who are in that position to lobby the provincial government to change the act to recognize different types of media sources for notice to the public. So this is part of that movement. And so in the case of Newmarket, they have changed their notice policy and their procedural bylaw because they no longer have the community paper of record. So many other communities are in the same boat.
Through you, Madam Chair, thanks for the explanation.
So we do have a motion that has been made to receive. Is there anybody wanting to second that motion? Nothing. Councilor Gordon?
Adjust that to receive and support.
Okay. Awesome. Everybody's hands are going up. Councilor Watt, you were on that one. Any discussion or questions on that? All in favor? That motion carries. Here we have two letters, and I have 11.2 from Enbridge and Environmental Defense. I will point out that they are complete opposites of one another, so if we're supporting anything, it's supporting one, not both, just so that you're aware. Councillor Watt.
I can make a motion just to receive, and the reason I want to do that is, Enbridge is one of the thing, when we're doing lots, when we're doing all these, it's one of our, agencies that we talk to, so I got, we don't even have gas in this township, and I think very much we will. Do we?
Yes, we do.
Oh, is there a dollar? Oh, I was under the impression that we didn't have any, we don't have septic. But, okay, then I can't, but I still will just receive it, please.
Okay. You second that? Any discussion to the motion? Before I call for the vote, I will speak to this one. I did have an opportunity to explore this a little bit further. So at this point, I can't remember the name that they're using, what Enbridge is calling the re-application every 5 years. If I had a letter from it, would be better off, but I digress. It's going to significantly limit any potential expansion for gas in the township in the future. And Enbridge is basically looking for our support to go back to the minister to revert the decision that they had made previously. I think that residents who I talk to in the community who aren't hooked into gas are wondering when we're going to get it. And we've had a number of announcements of ongoing expansion, and there has been. I mean, Selwyn, Bridge North, like they just expanded significantly. And Douro-Dummer could be one of those because we do have Selwyn, Lakefield has gas right next door to us. We've expanded through Lakefield, we've expanded through Asheville, Norwood. Potentially, and also from the city, from Donwood, right, from that direction. So I personally think that we should support this with the motion that we have on the floor to receive. That's fine, but I won't be supporting that motion. Councilor Ward.
Mayor Watson, I would like to echo your comments there. Natural gas is a far superior heating fuel for people. It's a lot cheaper than other alternatives that are out there. It's safe, reliable, and as I say, I want to echo your comments.
So that's what
I could rescind or change my, after hearing.
You can come and talk later too.
And say, receive the support, if that's okay with the second.
I would be willing to support it, yes.
Okay. Okay, so we've got a change on the motion. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, I'm involved in this all my life, gas. And the thing is, even though they say that we're going to, the existing government, it wants to weed it out. I can't see it happening, like, what's out there. I've read there, like, say 50–60% of Ontario's gas. And so for them to weed that out, I think it'll be 20–30 years, not they can do it 10 years. So I mean, it doesn't make sense what they're really pushing. I'm not suggesting that they should push something. My biggest problem is that being in the business, I can see the swing as much as they can do electric, and believe me, that day will happen. And the prices, you won't be able to afford your electric. That's the reality, because we cannot provide enough right now the way we're going to cover this, electric cars, all this kind of stuff. So I mean, this might happen someday. I won't be around, but it might happen someday. But to do a big jump on right now, I think a change of government that would be changed so quick.
Thank you. I've got everybody else in Councilor Ward.
So sorry.
Sorry.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I personally, I support what the motion, and I support, actually I support more natural gas, but for the cost of it coming further, there's been lots of talk, well, all my life pretty much, it has never moved past Donwood. And it's never come out here because they just don't have the amount of people to cover the cost to hook it up. And so I have my doubts of, you never know, I guess, but I just can't see it moving beyond, in our township anyways, of where it actually is and where it is. I just can't see that happening, but you never know. I guess if they wanna put the money into it, they just might. I will say that, in Donwood, Enbridge Gas, from a municipality standpoint, was very hard to deal with. And they wanted to impose a lot of charges on this municipality until we had a sit down with them and told them, or expressed what we could do, I should say, express what we could do by charging for their lines for public service in our municipality. And because of repairs and stuff, when we get locates, it would not be where they said it was, and we would hit it. So they were looking for exorbitant costs to fix that. Anyways, we got that solved, but I do caution that it could happen again in the future. That's just my comments.
Councilor Ward?
Through you, Mayor Watson, I just wanted to clarify the motion since we have these two letters related to the same topic. Is the motion to receive and support the letter from Enbridge and then do what with the correspondence from Environmental Defense? Is it to ignore and not receive, or is it to receive only? My preference would be to ignore. My preference. The motion's on the floor.
Let's go back to those who made the motion. I'm assuming my comments about supporting Enbridge. But to clarify, Councilor Watt, when you said you could change your motion to receive and support, we're talking about receiving and supporting the Enbridge.
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor, that's where you're going as well, I assume. So let's deal with that. That's on the floor right now, and then we'll deal with the one that's before us from, sorry, I can't remember the name of the
Environmental Defense.
Environmental Defense. So all in favor of the motion to receive and support the Enbridge letter? That motion carries. Now, Council, what would you like to do with the Environmental Defense letter? Councilor Ward?
I would like to make a motion to receive it.
Okay. Seconded. Councilor Watt, any discussion on that? All in favor? And that motion carries. Good discussion, thank you. On to bylaws, so, right? Okay, I feel so lost today. So we have 12.1, 12.2, bylaw 2405 and 2406 to move and to accept those. The other two we've already dealt with. Deputy Mayor Nelson?
Also move.
Seconded by Councilor Boyd. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. We have no reports from previous notices of motion. No notice of motion filed before the meeting. Any notices of motion from council? Before we move off that? Thank you, notice of motion and announcement.
Well, kind of bit of both. but I mean,
Okay, the floor is
It's
yours.
more a direction through the chair. I've been called a lot on, over in our park with the, new facilities we have, how they're going to set it up. So I think we need to have a little meeting with our, recreation manager to see, like, we got quite a few players that would like to be involved and how we're gonna charge or set up this pickleball. So and it's, you know, not too far off. So, I would like in the future to be able to have, I'm suggesting a little committee set up to, with Mike Wood, to, look at the different scenarios, what the other townships are doing. And as far as, renting it out or designated timing for people, because it will soon be, it's a big hit anymore. And we need to, look at it now until it breaks open and all of a sudden what we're gonna do. So maybe at a future meeting, I'd like to have like Luke come in and then, or even make a motion that we would set up a committee to look at it to see what's going on. And if that's the case, I wouldn't mind being on the committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
So that's just a comment, I guess, I don't know, if I gotta put that in motion, I haven't got my paper to send it through, so.
So through you, Mayor Watson, to Councillor Johnson, I believe, and I don't know whether or not there was a motion or not, when we put those courts in last year, that Mr. Moon had come in and said that there are slots that people can book, there's costs associated to that if they want the dedicated courts specifically for that time frame. Outside of anything being booked, that it would be open for use, and you would hope that people would use it and be respectful of others that wanted to use it, and that we were going to try to monitor what was happening with the courts between pickleball and tennis, and then come back to council if we needed to make any amendments. So I'm not suggesting that we can't do that, but I don't know if we have a motion already that council has supported to do that for this year. As opposed to establishing a committee, just give us an opportunity to monitor where we're at. But we can double check that. So I just don't want you to be contradicting an existing motion.
Well, the chair, even if we have a motion, I would like to extend that out, that there are people that use it all the time. And that they would like to be in the room with Mike to go over how to do it. Like they play in other townships too, and they've got a lot to bring forward. And I think we need that done fairly soon.
Through you, Mayor Watson, if there's suggestions that they have, maybe it's best they come as a delegation, and we'll have Mike here, and then Mike can respond based on what the department's doing, and council can hear what the request is, and we can come to a consensus as to how we're gonna move forward.
Okay,
That's right.
yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, great. So you can contact me.
I'll
Council,
contact
you'll
you.
reach out to your constituents, then fantastic.
I'll contact the people,
Yeah.
once I know whatever time you're gonna put that on.
Madam Mayor, so if someone would like to be a delegation, they have to contact me directly.
Yeah,
So if you could just have them reach out to me, then I can work with them to find
okay,
the
great,
right
I'll
date
get
and
them
time.
done. I'm meeting with a few of them tonight, so I'll do that.
Thank you for that. It's a good point. I mean, it's a
Yeah, well,
popular,
they say
popular
it's coming
sport. We want
back,
to make
so.
sure that people have equal access to that. So thank you. Any announcements, Councillor Watt?
And I may be a little off base with this one because it's kind of close to my heart, but it's also a business and stuff like that. But Classy Chassis Motorcycles out between Lakeville and Bridge North is doing their yearly polar plunge this Saturday coming up. Every penny that they raise goes to Sick Kids Children's Hospital in Toronto. They don't take a penny for anything. They do a calendar that is $10 for a calendar. They don't charge anything for the publishing of the calendar, none of that. They just, all the money goes in. They do this in conjunction with HD Rock, which is another motorcycle place. And yeah, last year I think they raised $10,000 in one day. Like, yeah, so they're trying to, you know, they're looking at, if you go onto the just Google Classy Chassis on the website, you can donate, you can sponsor, do so on and so forth. But like, it's a good cause. And I mean, I've had family at Sick Kids, so I mean, it's a definitely a good cause, and all the money, like I said, there's not a penny that stays here. Every cent goes to Sick Kids. So it's, yeah, the polar plunge is this Saturday morning, and it'll be in the Otonabee River. They're going to meet at the bike place, and then everybody will go, and whoever jumping in, and it's the theme this year is WWE. So the wrestlers dressed up. But yeah, anyway, it's definitely a good cause. So
So is this your Hulk Hogan gear? Is that what this is? Councillor Johnston.
they just saw last night, they drove us.
Just to speak on that, to the chair there, I would suggest that it would be a good cause for our mayor and deputy mayor to be involved.
Sport, but I don't think I'll be drunk.
I will not be jumping in any cold water.
Every little bit helps.
All right, well, thank you for that. Any other announcements, Councillor?
Well, I want to just make a notice to the chair that we did have on Monday, Family Day, skating over at Douro. There was sponsored through the Knights of Columbus and the Lions, and the response from our township was great. There was something like 168. They gave out hot dogs and hot chocolate free, and they gave out 168 of them free to the people that were skating. So that's been continuing on for a few years. And I think that's a great thing to see our community mixing out there and doing that. Just want to make note of that.
Thank you for noting that, and to the Lions Club and the Knights for their involvement in that as well. Any other announcements? Seeing nothing, then we are moving on to confirming bylaw, please. Councilor Watt, Deputy Mayor Nelson, all in favor? That motion carries. Of course, our next council meeting is on March 5th, and then a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Nelson, Councilor Johnston, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
We know we had a new man in the crowd tonight. Mr. Terry.
Thanks,